All right. Before we get into the topic of climate justice, you established the Berkeley Community Law Center in the East Bay and eventually found the need to form Climate Rights International. When was it, Brad, when you realized that human rights and climate justice should not be separate and distinct from each other?
Well, it's been a gradual process. I was the Asia director at Human Rights Watch for 20 years before I left to start this organization. And what I realized was the human rights community wasn't focusing on the biggest human rights problem of our generation, and probably our children's generation, which is climate change. We need to actually look at all the aspects in ways that climate change is affecting people, from forced displacement, major health consequences, extreme heat, problems in the workplace, you name it. Climate change is the ultimate cross-cutting human rights issue, and the human rights community just wasn't prioritizing it.
Now, talk to us about the road from advocacy to policy and how important it is, especially for vulnerable countries like the Philippines, to see climate justice reflected in local and national policies, Brad.
Yeah, climate justice is typically seen as a global issue of making sure there's something called the just transition, for example, so that people who are working in industries related to coal or oil and gas, when they lose their jobs in those industries, are able to find new work that pays them a similar amount or more. They get retraining. But the just transition and climate justice really is about largely about what happens to people who are suffering from climate change. So, let's take people who are elderly, who are now facing more and more extreme heat. What are governments going to do for them to protect them? What are industry that's benefited from fossil fuels going to do to protect them? How is, and taken to the national level in the Philippines, how is the Philippines, which has not contributed very much to the problem of climate change, going to be compensated by the polluters? Because let's face it, climate change is a problem of pollution, polluting the atmosphere with carbon dioxide that is increasing temperatures and making life unlivable for many people around the world. So it has many elements, from a local community level, what happens at a hospital or a school for children who are too hot, what kind of cooling is there for them, to what kind of huge financial transfers are going to be made to countries like the Philippines that didn't cause the problem.